Bob Skinner, would you be willing to talk to us a little bit about what you're up to?
I'm the fifth generation here. My great granddad came in 1863, and I want to tell you, I'm sure most of you have heard the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. That's Measure 66 money that was lottery money that was thrown into watershed conservation. And then under that on the grid is our local watershed councils. And I guess what I am going to start telling you is that the water savings we had and also the water quality that we improved here on Skinner Ranches, we're amazed at what happened. What we did, it was a big project. It was the biggest project that OWEB had come up with. I mean, it was very expensive. We put in an underground pipeline from the source. This whole source is gravity flow. And we started with a 30-inch pipe buried 5 feet in the ground. It ran for approximately 2 miles. It was plus or minus laser grade 1/2 inch. So it was quite a project. Anyway, I got this idea from a ranch that we leased for a while in northern Nevada. Actually, a guy that ran that had an 8th grade graduation, but he ended up owning 2 big casinos. A very intelligent guy. And what precipitated the urgency on this is that Oregon at the time was talking about measuring all water at the point of diversion, and that scares everybody to death when you're in a pasture situation like we are with what they call, I had to learn that this is a new term, I never knew it until I got into the political arena, but wild flood. Anytime you've got wild flood, and water is so valuable nowadays that Oregon's looking at any way they can to grab more water and send it downstream for the salmon. So in our case, we had another issue that kind of precipitated this, in that we're in prime time sage grouse country. And I don't know if you people up there have any kind of an idea what that is, but boy, it's not slowing down. So bear in mind that what they were going to limit us to was 3 acre-feet a year. And I'm telling you, a wild flood situation, as most of you folks know, that is unbelievably impossible. We would not cover our wild meadows and grasslands with that. So putting this pipeline in, we came down, and I won't go into any kind of detail about it, what it looks like, unless you want me to. What really sold this thing to them was the fact that we ponded up a lot of water on our meadow grounds, and they wanted to stop that because of West Nile. And we are right in the epicenter of West Nile. We have a lot of people here got it. We had animals dying. We didn't have many, but a lot of the neighbors close did. It was a big issue. My son had it. It scared us to death. People were dying of it. So anyway, we eliminated all ponding. We put in 2 big pivots to eliminate all ponding on the ground that wasn't leveled. And then the pipeline itself ran over 2 miles into leveled ground that was farmed and pastured both. All I can tell you is that we cut our wastewater to virtually 0. If there's any wastewater at all, it's because the irrigator didn't pay attention. I could go into more detail than that. We're currently irrigating total altogether on all of our places. Well, actually, if you want to add another, we personally, right on Skinner Ranches, everything we own, we're irrigating about 2,750 acres. And this has enabled us to pick up more acres. It's enabled us to save a lot of water. And it's worked out very, very well. And I mean, if they cut us to 3 acre feet ever, I guess we have a little better chance of surviving now. I don't know if we can make it, but anyway, it certainly looks better than it did. These things are not cheap, even though they're cost share. You know, you still put in a lot of money to get these things going. And I don't know. Let's see. You know, I think for the sake, unless you want to ask me some questions, feel free. Go ahead.
Bob, this is Bill. I was wondering if you could kind of explain to the group how the piping system works and how you open your floodgates and kind of how long you run the water and kind of like what we talked about the other day.
Okay.
Explain the system to me. So.
Okay. Well, right at the head, of course, I said we start with 30 inches, and it's buried by between 2 and 3 feet of water when it's turned on. So it's got a big head. And then once that pipeline starts sucking, it's almost scary. We put a big cage around it so nothing can get in, because if they ever went in, or anybody ever went in, I mean, it's unbelievable when that thing starts sucking what happens. That's a big pipe, and the velocity on that pipe must be tremendous. The stuff coming out the end in an open discharge, you have to put concrete behind it because it will absolutely destroy stuff. There's a quantity and the velocity together are just incredible. What we do is we come off of this bigger pipeline with smaller pipelines. We call them laterals, and they have regular risers in our case, every 27 feet. And we unscrew those, and the water just kind of comes out, bubbles out of it, and runs downhill. And anyway, we typically, there's 2 risers per what we call land. We got dikes set out, so there's 2 per land and on the level ground. And that runs, all you have to do is open and close, and you can control your water that way. There's no reason to waste anything. We also have trouble with critters tearing out the dirt dams. That was a big thing when we were irrigating. That stopped all that. We have raccoon, we have everything, you know, that loves when you irrigate. So that helped. Also, some of the ground downstream has become way more productive. I mean, our production has, and I'm talking pasture too. Our pasture has gone up tremendously simply because we're irrigating it better. That's all there is to it. And there's no reason. I'm not saying we don't waste some water, but if we do waste water, it's because we're being a little careless. Either we get busy or our irrigators don't quite keep track of it. But we don't waste any particle of what we used to. The water quality also is a big deal now. And I feel a lot better in that we're not spilling anything back into the stream that we take out. And you know, they can't catch us with any kind of pollutants at all because we don't have to put anything back. So I guess, Phil, did I get you covered, or what more do you want to know?
Then the other thing we talked about too is when you said you're running an open ditch, discharge, get your water down to your fields. You said you'd start out with 1,000 inches of water, and you had 100 inches by the time you got to your farm.
Yeah, well, we'd start out with, well, maybe not quite that bad, but we'd start out, we'd put roughly, there's no way to tell, we didn't have a measuring device, but we estimated we were putting about 800 inches of water in. It wasn't a ditch, it was a canal. And you couldn't even get across it with anything, even a horse. You had to get to a specified crossings to get across. I mean, it was deep and it was wide and it was pretty vicious. And so we eliminated that canal totally. And let's see, the quantity, Phil asked about the quantity. We're currently putting about 400 inches in the top, and we are taking exactly that amount out the bottom. It's going directly into the field. There's zero waste between the top and And also you need to know that it's exactly 1 mile from section line to section line, from the head of that thing until it comes out the first riser. And then the last riser is about 2 miles, well, it's about 1 mile farther down line. And that's the one I'm talking about. By then the velocity is so much, and the head on that water is going so fast that we actually put concrete behind it to slow it down. So after it comes out of that pipe. Anything else, Phil?
Oh, I think that was it.
I just had one question, Bob. Did you ever look at generated electricity with all that?
The what now?
Or a turbine?
We haven't looked at it, no. I don't know. You're talking about for producing electricity in that pipeline. I don't know. I guarantee you that it would probably be something we'd look at. We do have solar systems, but we don't have any hydroelectric systems, so no. We have not looked at it.
Just, I'm not sure what your public utilities program is over there, but there's a reimbursement for generating electricity that the public utilities have to required to purchase. I mean, you know, this is legislation back in the, well, we had quite a few projects proposed in the little Salmon River Basin, like they did environmental impact statement on, and they're very controversial and got settled in courts in the most situations. But anyway, the Elk Creek in Little Salmon Rivers has a generating facility in it, and Goose Creek had a proposed one that went around and around and around through the courts, environmental impacts, and then the salmon got listed, and that kind of put a nail in the coffin.
Okay, well, yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
This is Sandy Dryden. Thanks for your presentation. I also ranch up here in Meadows Valley. And
Okay.
so it sounds like an interesting system you've got there. What kind of crops are you raising with this irrigation?
Grass hay and alfalfa, and then as a rotation crop for the alfalfa, we use a grain. Now we're into triticale, but oats or barley, just to keep it out of alfalfa for 1 year. Interesting, I will say, you're talking about Highway 95. I want you to know that that's the highway that comes through Jordan Valley too. So we're a long ways apart, but that highway is also our highway. And we're having to deal with a lot more Californians going through that highway than you are, though.
So Bob, with that pipeline, did that eliminate most all of your stock water without having a tap come out for it?
You know, they never talked about limiting stock water. That didn't, you know, we're okay with, well, the way the state figures it, the amount that they'll allow for stock water is just basically nothing. I mean, really, it's just about a garden hose, and it won't even get through. So that hasn't been an issue. We did drill a well just for stock water. And because now it's a long story as to why we drilled it. But I mean, my great granddad, my granddad, my dad, and myself, and finally, by the time it got to me, we basically had to, I just said, we've got to get some water here for late use because we don't have water. We do not live on a perennial stream. That's all there is to it. And we've got to conserve what we've got. And it's, anyway, I think this has come pretty close. We've had a lot of tours here, including the OWEB board. You know, I don't think a lot of the people on there, they're political appointees. And unfortunately, a lot of the people on there don't have a clue about what's going on. I mean, I could tell when I was telling those folks, I mean, I assume that I'm talking to a group here that probably is just like me. I mean, we are 100% agriculture. We're 100% into cattle. So it's family operation. Anyway, it's easy to talk to you, but it's not easy to talk to somebody that's a political appointee and running a show, the OWEB board. And anyway, Oregon's tough. You're fortunate, folks, that you live in Idaho. Oregon, Washington, and California, pretty tough politically. And then salmon too. We don't have salmon because the Owyhee Dam stopped them all. But I guess it did. I don't know. I mean, there's no way they're going to get over that. So I don't know what may have stopped it ahead of that, but we do not have salmon where we are here in Jordan Valley.
Hey, Bob, I was gonna ask you, you're gonna approximate like your total water savings, and I'm not talking like word beat, but if it was like from what you were to when you went to this piping system, was it half of like what the water you're using, a quarter, three, just to guesstimate like what kind of savings you were seeing?
Well, on this project, now we have some acres that, still a lot of acres that don't have the project. But on this particular project, it's more than half. There's no question. Now, the other question is, and I posed this to the OWEB, what's wasting water? Have you ever thought of that? I mean, they're worried now about aquifers, groundwater, stuff like that. I mean, we're gathering up, say 400 inches of water, and we're delivering 400 down at the bottom. But in the meantime, we put in, 385 acres of sprinkler, eliminated any waste. There is no ponding. There is no anything. That's what they wanted to do. They didn't want any ponding. They don't want any mosquitoes because it's West Nile. So what are we doing here? I mean, is it what they really need to do? I mean, they're talking about the aquifers are going dry, and yet they want us to make sure we don't overuse on the water. So I posed that to the OWEB. I said, what are you trying to do here? I mean, wasting water to us was not wasting water, but it came to that.
Groundwater recharge.
What about it?
Groundwater recharge,
That's a big
irrigation.
deal.
It's a big deal.
That is. And of course, we're still flooding down below those pivots. Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's exactly what I'm saying, is that I'm afraid they're trying to do something that they may regret. I mean, our deal is not going to change it because we're still using that water. And one thing we have as a water right in Antelope Reservoir, we have the only user on Antelope Reservoir, because my great granddad traded land to the district, to the government back then when they built that, because that was before the government operated on no money and they had to come up with the money before they built it. So he traded them land for a water right. So they have to deliver our finite quantity of water. They have to. We've been through that. I went through a lawsuit on that. Anyway, so if you're guaranteed a finite amount of water on the tail end of the season to try to cover your ground, to us Skinner ranches, it's a very valuable asset because we're not wasting any water.
Bob, you may have mentioned this, but if you did, I missed it. What's the fall of that? You kept talking about the pressure in the head in that pipe. So over that course of 2 miles, what's the fall?
Well, as I remember, and don't quote me on this, but as I remember, it's about 9 feet. And that's not much. And I mean, it wasn't much in 2 miles. I didn't think it was. I mean, that's a long ways. But boy, when that stuff gathers velocity, and I actually talked to an engineer and asked him, and he's the one that told me to put in, he figured it out, and it would started out at 30, and then we ran it down there until it, for a ways, until it picked up some velocity, and then we neck it down to 24. And by then, boy, it really picks up velocity. And when it comes out, when you open that head gate at the end into one of those things, it's just like, man, you feel like you need to get out of the way. If you got sucked into it, you'd be, it's quite a bunch of water, even though it's not, you know, it's not what we were running before. It was just running slower. And now it's got a lot of pressure. And now we've captured that, by the way. Like if you came here now and looked at what I'm talking about, where it comes out, you wouldn't see it because we've captured it into a lateral. So we're taking that down a lateral and irrigating another 100 acres with it.
So with 9 foot of fall, are you able to run your pivots on gravity, on the gravity fed system?
Yes, because they have a lot of fall where there's a channel that has nothing to do with the pipeline. We run that down, we pond it up in a dam that we had on a road, and we got 2 turbines working right there on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That, were you under the impression that the pivots were under gravity flow too, Phil? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I was, yep.
No, I wish they were. I think there might be enough pressure, but that pressure is 2 miles downstream. And we are getting right from the very top where the inlet pipe is, that pivot's swinging around there. And then, but the water travels by gravity flow around to where it gets into the pivot 1 mile away at the pumps.
So
But
Bob,
everything below that, now everything below that, Phil, at that, from that fence clear down for 1 more mile is 100% gravity flow.
Okay.
Bob, one more question from Sandy. So am I understanding correctly that the water you're saving is because you're not losing it in the transfer down the canal? Is that it?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
I was gonna take us to a break, but any more questions for Bob?
No, thanks, Bob, for jumping
Yeah.
on.
You
Yeah.
bet.
Thank you.
Thank
Bob,
you,
thanks
guys.
for calling in.
Yeah, thanks,
Be
Bob.
happy to show it to anybody. Thank you.
No,